What's up, guys? And in today's video, we have a very special guest, like always, Mr. Tom Hyder. I'm sure you guys know him, you know what he does, and if you don't, Tom's basically gonna introduce himself, I guess. Yes.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, look, very appreciate you having me on. Good to see you guys as well virtually. Essentially, I run a company called Systemized Scaling where we help place appointment setters, closers, and build out the sales process for agencies and infra product businesses whilst managing teams on the side. But yeah, that's me.
In- Interesting, nice and short and straight to the point. I love that. And when did you get started with building out your business?
It's a good question. So I was a closer for about a year or two,
Mm-hmm.
and I was getting some pretty decent numbers, but I sort of yearned for the ability to actually build something. You know what I mean? Like long
Mm-hmm.
term, not just short term commissions. So just over a year ago, I took the plunge, went back to zero, and I started this business, and it's been an absolute blast. Learned a lot, made a lot of mistakes, and yeah, we're moving.
100%. And what made you get started with doing sales? Like, what was the main thing that got you into the world of sales?
The world of sales. So I was in. I'll, I don't know how much to censor on this video, but
Mm-hmm.
long story short, when I was really young, not that young, but
Mm-hmm.
really young, I used to smoke weed here and there. I used to allegedly sell a bit of weed here and there.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized I actually had a pretty good knack of sales, right? The gift of
Mm-hmm.
the gab, they call it in the UK. And then I went to university. I actually got arrested, which was a good slap in the face.
Mm-hmm.
Dropped out of
Mm-hmm.
university because they were teaching me business, but how to actually
Mm-hmm.
climb up a corporate ladder, which didn't really make sense. So dropped out of university. I applied for a sales and marketing role. Thought it was going to be in office. Got in there, and they said, "Okay, sweet, we're going out." I said, "We're going out? Where?" And we
Mm-hmm.
actually went out to the streets of Manchester on some council estate, which is like the projects or whatever you call it in the US. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, turns out I was pretty good at it. I was selling gas and electric, charity subscriptions, and I was there for about a year. Built a team of
Mm-hmm.
around 19, 20 people, hiring, firing hundreds in the process. And then after that, I realized, okay, I want a bit of a higher leverage role. So I got into high ticket closing. And then another couple of years later, here we are.
Interesting. And did you like sign up for any courses before you like got into the online space, or how did you basically find out about the online space?
Twitter, YouTube. I saw a bunch of people and a bunch of
Mm-hmm.
noise around the space, and I was going to do it on my own, but I didn't really know where to
Mm-hmm.
start. So I did pay for a course initially. It was terrifying, honestly. It was like
Mm-hmm.
most of my money. It was
Mm-hmm.
like a 4K
Mm-hmm.
course called Club Closer, which, funnily enough,
Mm-hmm.
I became the first closer for. I think we scaled together to like 200K a month, which
Mm-hmm.
is nice. But yeah, that was my first ever course, and it was terrifying, absolutely terrifying.
Why do you say terrifying? Like, what made it so terrifying? Was it just,
Because
the mm-hmm.
sorry to interrupt. I'd never have done it before, right? And I think when you
Mm-hmm.
earn a certain amount of money, you attach the amount of time it takes you to get it, right? You attach the
Mm-hmm.
value you've put in to be able to get that money. So if you're putting a few months worth of wages in one course, for me, it was the first time ever doing it. I knew I was going to make it
Mm-hmm.
work, but it was more so, shit, like we're doing this. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Of course. And if you didn't take that plunge, I mean, you wouldn't be here where you are right now, no?
No, I disagree. I disagree. I think a lot of founders, they
Mm-hmm.
have this unwavering sense of self-belief and sort of arrogance to a certain extent. I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't say I'm a dickhead, but
Mm-hmm.
I'd say I'm pretty confident in myself. So I know,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of me joining that course or not, I would have made it work in whatever avenue.
Mm-hmm.
But it sort of fell into my lap and it sort of just happened really. So it's the path we went down.
Of course. And I actually love that you mentioned that, like, that you say, you would have blindly just believed that it would have worked. Because I hear like a lot of people say that, oh, if this didn't work out or it didn't happen this certain way, I don't know if I would be here. And that's why, like, I was asking that specific question. But I love that you say that, no matter what and no matter what position, things or life would have handed you, you still would have been the Tom that is building today. So
Yeah.
with that
Yeah.
now, what made you like drop out of university? I mean, I'm sure that was also as scary as plunging 4K down into a course, no?
It wasn't. None of these things have been that uncomfortable for me. It's more the external. So, for example,
Mm-hmm.
my parents, I got kicked out for a few
Mm-hmm.
days,
Mm-hmm.
and they just thought I was just making such a stupid decision after just being arrested as well. So it's sort of two decisions
Mm-hmm.
hand in hand, not the best decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, the dropping out of uni was good for me. But I think it ties into the overall like, holistic view, right? I don't think
Mm-hmm.
that an entrepreneur is just like made. I
Mm-hmm.
truly believe that they have it in them from when they're born, right? That need to sort of have a contrarian view, not listen to people. Like every single job I've had, every single situation where there's been a level of authority, I've always not got on with it. I've always had
Mm-hmm.
to do something more and find my own way to do things. So I think tying back to the point of would I have got to the position I'm in today without a course? Yeah, do you know what I mean? And I
Mm-hmm.
probably
Of
would have dropped
course.
out of university, and I probably would have never stuck to a proper 9 to 5 job without trying my own
Mm-hmm.
thing. Do you know what I mean?
Of
So
course.
all
Of
that to
course.
say, me dropping out of uni, that actually wasn't too scary.
Mm-hmm.
And I say investing in a course was scary, but at the same time, it wasn't that scary because of that unwavering belief that regardless, it's gonna happen.
Of course. And how do you stay having that belief even in times where it may not be as certain in terms of moving forward?
I don't really know. I don't really know. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
perception, right? And I think I've met so many people who are just bog standard guys. They,
Mm-hmm.
without sounding rude, like they don't really have much to them. Do you know what I mean? Not in a bad
Mm-hmm.
way, but these people are ridiculously wealthy. Well,
Mm-hmm.
relative to our space, right? Like maybe doing 100, 200,
Mm-hmm.
300K a month. And it makes me think, I think I'm quite a smart guy. And again, like I am quite
Mm-hmm.
arrogant, but it just makes me think, okay, what is the difference between these guys? It's got to just be
Mm-hmm.
time and effort. You know what I mean?
Of course.
But yeah, that's
Oh.
sort of why I've already thought,
Oh.
but that's sort of why I've always had that self belief because I know that
Mm-hmm.
if countless people can do it, then why can't I?
Of course. Like, why can't Tom just build the thing? And what do you like? What lessons have you like basically learned when you look at people that are doing 200, 300K a month versus like someone that is doing 50K? Like, what is the difference between the two? Is it just the time and energy aspect of it, or is there something a lot deeper?
Yeah, so past 50K a month, it really is about team and delegation and leverage, right? So below 50K a
Mm-hmm.
month, it usually is about product market fit and just getting an offer that resonates with the
Mm-hmm.
market. Do you know what I mean? Like being able to put a
Okay.
word out in the market and people actually want it. Past 50K a month, you've started to get some form of traction. And it's
Mm-hmm.
really about not being the internal operator and being more of a business owner. So that's essentially what I
Oh.
help with most of my clients. I turn them into operators internal in their business and essentially hire for them, right? Like you don't really
Mm-hmm.
need to do too many individual outputs and actions past 50K a month. It's more so managing, tracking data,
Mm-hmm.
and just one or two key needle movers each week or each month.
Of course. And do you think that's like widely known, or is it something that, you only realize once you hit that specific bottleneck in terms of understanding that in order to scale, you need to do XYZ? And is it something that you've also realized through time that not, many people know it, or many people do know it, but they just don't take action on it? Or what is the thought process around that?
I, I think it's known, but I don't think
Mm-hmm.
it's realized to the importance that it is, right? And I think one
Mm-hmm.
thing that stops a lot of business owners doing this is scarcity and ego. I think ego
Mm-hmm.
really stops business owners in all facets and all industries because they think I can do this the best. Oh no, like I don't want to spend 2K a month on a new team member, or I don't want to hire someone, or I don't trust them, right? And I think that sort of
Mm-hmm.
scarce mindset really stops people from getting to the next level. It's like an analogy I always tell, right? To get to the next level
Mm-hmm.
of anything, right? When you're a 9 to 5 worker, to get to your first 10K month, to get from 10, 20, whatever, there is always a level of sacrifice and trade-off, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
money, whether it's ego, whether it's maybe peace of mind. And I think to get
Mm-hmm.
from that 50K to 100K plus mark, it is ego and it's scarcity. Because getting the first 10,
Mm-hmm.
20, 30, 40, 50K months, like it feels nice, you're making pretty good margins, but you have to lower those margins and you have to go into the
Mm-hmm.
unknown. So another example is, let's say the next step of your level is to learn how to run ads. You're going to eat shit
Mm-hmm.
for a while, right? And that's probably what a lot of people are scared of. But to get to the level where you can effectively run ads and you can run a 100, 200K a month business, you got to be pretty good at it, which means you have to eat shit and you got to make those mistakes.
Of course. And do you think not a lot of people like to face that truth because of the ego?
Yeah, yeah. I think not many people like discomfort, and that's why
Mm-hmm.
every level you ascend to, there's less people there,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because not as many people are willing to do it. Like some people just want a lifestyle business, want to just do
Mm-hmm.
50K a month for the rest of their life, which is completely fine, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the people who
Mm-hmm.
don't are the people who are willing to sort of eat shit short term and go through that discomfort and feel like an imposter and feel like they don't know what they're doing. They're the people who get to the next level. But again, not as many people want to actually go through the discomfort.
Of course. And do you like constantly put yourself in positions where you have to be uncomfortable in order to grow, or do you like take the other approach of, like, I'm happy where I'm at? And I know you obviously going to say that you take the path of being most uncomfortable, but I just want to hear from your perspective, like, around that. How do you put yourself in uncomfortable positions in order to grow?
Well, I sort of do an audit once a week, and not even once a week. I probably do it like every other
Mm-hmm.
day. And I think, okay,
Mm-hmm.
sweet. Have I faced any level of discomfort? And what have
Mm-hmm.
I put off that I know I need to do? That's usually the thing that you should do. And everyone sort of knows what they need to do. Like it's not rocket science. You
Mm-hmm.
don't need a course to tell you what to do. It's more the accountability people buy courses for. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like to open up, I get a lot of anxiety that I'm not doing
Mm-hmm.
enough, I'm not growing enough, I'm not in a big enough industry, which is why I'm always auditing. Okay, sweet. What can I do to sort of make myself feel very uncomfortable and feel like I'm out of depth? When I was a closer, the
Mm-hmm.
main reason why I wanted to leave is because I felt like I was the big dog. I was making like
Mm-hmm.
20,
Mm-hmm.
25K a month, and I felt like I was like a decent head that was looked at in the space. Well, in my little friendship group. And then I
Mm-hmm.
realized one day, shit, that's dangerous. That shows that I, I need to outgrow myself. Do you know what I mean? I need to get to that next level. I need to be in a room where I feel stupid, where I feel like the
Mm-hmm.
most underqualified person there.
Of course, of course. And have you put yourself in that room where you feel like you're the most underqualified person in the group, and how did you do that?
Well, when I'm comparing myself to people doing 100, 200, 300K a month, it
Mm-hmm.
makes me feel like I am the least qualified. Because I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I have a lot of knowledge and I feel like I'm more qualified than most people, but I've not caught up to the income levels of 100, 200K a month. Do you know what I mean? So it makes me feel like
Of
shit, I
course.
need to do more work. I need to make better decisions. And it makes
Of
you have
course.
that perspective to think out the box. If you don't have that pressure of I'm the smallest in the room, you don't have the urgency to even think like that.
Of course. And do you think it's something that never truly ends? Like, having that mindset, because once you do, you somewhat start to plateau, right? Thinking that I'm the biggest in the space, and do that. That's when you simply just start to plateau. Correct.
Yeah. I'm not at the phase of life where I have to worry about that endless spiral of entrepreneurship wanting to get to the next level. I think there are
Mm-hmm.
phases of your life and seasons of your life where you do have to prioritize that. But look, I'm a 23-year-old guy. Like, I've got unicorn blood as a young guy right now. You know what I mean? My whole priority is just to work and work and work and get to the next level. So I do know that there is just a never-ending path and spiral of wanting more. And I am a tiny bit scared of how to fix it eventually. Let's say when I get to 10 mil, 20 mil net worth, like how to stop that.
Mm-hmm.
But like right now, I'm not really optimizing for that. You know what I mean? But to
Um,
answer your question,
so
yeah, I
what?
think it
Mhm.
is like an endless cycle.
Of course. So what are you optimizing for at this moment in time?
Leverage. So most of my
Okay.
career has been me doing the managing, me doing the sales
Mm-hmm.
calls, when I was a closer, etc. But now I'm getting to the space in my career where I'm trying to become as much of a business owner with as little manual, tedious actions as possible, right? Someone
Mm-hmm.
who can actually make moves, manage people, hire people, delegate, and still make a significant amount of money. That's the
Of
main thing that
course.
I'm optimizing for. Because, like, in my opinion, I think anything before that, it's not really a business. To a certain
Mm-hmm.
extent, you're a freelancer. And I think if you want to become a quote unquote business owner, and if you want to essentially
Mm-hmm.
get to the upper echelons, then you have to completely delegate yourself.
Of course, of course. And that's something that you're doing on a day to day, right?
That's the one, man. That's the one. And that could
And
be hiring
mm-hmm.
team members. That could be hiring VAs. That could be ads. Ads are a really, really good way to essentially delegate outreach and manual
Of
outbound.
course. Of course. And do you think that like people that get, stuck in their ways and, somewhat married to the idea of I have to do every single thing, they ultimately fail? Like for example, like let's say they're running a business and they're doing the sales, they're doing the outreach, they're doing every single part of the business, but they're not creating leverage. Do you think that's what ultimately allows or lets them to fail in a sense? Simply, is it an ego thing or what is it in your opinion?
There's a bunch of things. I think belief is a big one. A lot of people think because they've tried something before, like hiring appointment setters or closers, that it doesn't work,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they think that their way is the highway and that's the way they do things. But when I come into a lot of businesses, they realize how little they knew about the whole sales process, about closers, about
Mm-hmm.
setters, about how to manage them, how to effectively onboard them, right? So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people do it the wrong way, get burnt, and they never really want to do it again. And sort of
Mm-hmm.
ego does tie into it because they believe that their way is the only way.
Of course, of course. And like long term, that ultimately does harm to their business, correct? Because, their way is the highway, but that's not the most efficient way to grow, right?
Yeah. It's opportunity cost, right? Like you can build
Mm-hmm.
a house with one person and they might be exhausted at the end and it'll take them 3 years, or you could build it with 20 people and it'll take 2 months. You know what I mean? It's literally
Of
just
course,
opportunity cost.
of course. Now I have to ask, now that you mention that, why why didn't you move into info rather than from sales? Because I'm sure like a lot of people do move from doing closing all the way into info. Why did you not take that specific approach?
That's a good question. And I'm still trying to like figure out why. But I think it's
Mm-hmm.
because I want to build something really, really, really big. It's something
Mm-hmm.
that shits on this online money space, which like it's not real business to a certain extent. I want to build something of enterprise
Mm-hmm.
value. I want to build something that can be sold eventually.
Mm-hmm.
I want to build a real business. And I think probably on an ego level, like attaching myself to info, fast money,
Mm-hmm.
sort of like selling dreams. Look, it's not a bad way of earning money, but it just doesn't align with who I am and who I want to be. So, yeah, I could have made shit ton of money in info, high ticket sales
Mm-hmm.
coaching. I know for a fact I could have, but it
Mm-hmm.
sacrifices my identity and who I want to be, and yeah, me.
Of course. Do you think it sacrifices more like the depth of how deep you can go in business as well and like become a master in your specific space?
No, no, because you can learn some really
Mm-hmm.
good skills in info. I think the one thing it
Mm-hmm.
potentially gets lowered is your reputation, depending on how you spin things. But if you get to a
Mm-hmm.
certain scale, it's pretty hard to get rid of any bad reputation, um, because you're going to get refunds, you're going to get bad clients who don't really get results, etc. But no, I think you can still build a really big business after info. But I think it's opportunity cost. Like let's say I spend 5 years
What?
building an info business. That's 5 less years I can spend building a real business. I don't want to say real business because it's probably going to trigger a lot of people, but building a business
Of course.
that can scale to crazy levels and get you enterprise value.
Of course. I mean, you've mentioned that enterprise value like a couple times now. Why is that such a big thing for you, like in terms of building a business that ultimately gets that enterprise value? Do you believe that if you had taken the route of info, that that business model wouldn't have gotten you that enterprise value?
Yeah, you can't typically sell info businesses. It's probably been done once or twice, but it's not the path that you go to essentially sell a business. And I think there's two folds, like two answers to me wanting to eventually sell a business. One is just that piece number, and who knows if the piece number will change, who knows, but just building something to be able to sell it eventually and sort of get that retirement fund. If you want to never work in your life again, you can, but you don't have to. That's very important to me. And I think the other side of things, I love building. Like I love sales, but what I love more is the sales ops side of things. Building CRMs, building data trackers, automations, workflows, building systems and fixing shit. Do you know what I mean? So building a business and getting that gratification that it's so valuable that it can sell to someone for a significant amount of money probably boosts my ego as well. Like I think it's twofold.
Of course. And like now that makes perfect sense because you use those, sales skills that you've basically gained over time and now putting them into operations, and which is something that I really commend. So like what would you say, around that specific segment in terms of sales ops is something that most people miss when it comes to, the initial stage all the way to the closers, collecting their cash?
So it depends where the business is at. I think over 50K a month, data is super, super important. A lot of people think it's boring and they don't track it meticulously, but data is just so it's absolutely gold. Because if I go into a business, right, that's doing 100, 200K a month, whatever, and I can look at all their data, I can literally spot within seconds, okay, what are the top 3 needle movers? Literally just based on the industry average of data and what's happening right now in the team. So it's so easy for me to think, based on literal numbers, not on emotion, okay, this is what I need to do to get this client results. Do you know what I mean? So if a business knows their numbers, if they have an in-depth data tracker, average order value, cash percentage, show rate, close rate, even on the appointment setting side, cash per conversation, etc. If they have all these metrics and they know how to read the metrics, they don't need a course. You know what I mean? They don't need any consulting. They literally just need to act on what needs to be fixed. You know what I mean?
Of course. And what if like the 3 needle or some of the needle movers that you've seen, and how have you been able to fix them?
Good question. So average order value, right? The average deal size that you close. Okay? If an average order value is relatively low, the way I'll go into a business and optimize that is a couple different ways. First things first, closers tend to offer payment plans too early and too easily because they think they're going to get the sale for it. Okay, so first things first, we do training on an open wallet check. It's pretty much just an optimized way to find out how much the prospect has in terms of cash and how to effectively pitch plans and custom payment plans for that. So we're collecting as much cash as possible. The second option is increasing the price. Now, a lot of people undercharge themselves. Sometimes people overcharge themselves, but it's very rare. So when I go into a business, I'll look at the price, I'll look at the closing rate. If the closing rate is anything higher than 40%, it typically tells me that you're probably charging too high. So I'll increase the price incrementally until the closing rate hovers at about a 30% rate. Okay? So that's the 2 main things that I'll use to essentially increase average order value. Now, show rate is what a lot of people struggle with, the amount of people who actually show up to a call. In this day and age, we lack trust, okay? And we lack personalization. So a lot of people have automated messages saying, oh yeah, you all good for your call, here's your call, all this. And people just see it as noise. They know it's just automated. So the key is to make this copy and make these automations seem like it's a real person. Like it's your bro getting in contact, seeing how you are, right? Very important. And speed to lead as soon as someone opts in. So let's say you run an agency or an info business and someone opts in or books in a call. Within 5 minutes, that's the data I've gathered, within 5 minutes is the most important range to call someone up, get in a call, build a bit of a relationship, get to know them, and pretty much check if they're all good for the call. If you do that, statistically, there's so much higher chance that they show up to the call and they're ready for the call. So I guess last thing on that, one thing that me and my team build out for our clients is the time between the call booked and when the call actually is scheduled. Okay, absolutely peppering them with objection handling content, frequently asked questions, nurturing videos, personalization, and that's what really helps with show rate. But yeah, that's the two main metrics. Close rate, yeah. Sales training, there's a bunch of things. It could be lead quality, it could be sales talent, it could be sales training. There's a bunch of things, but I'd say show rate and average order value are a big one.
100%. And you mentioned one very important thing, like what you said right now, like objection handling and handling those objections before they hop onto the call. What is the specific like thought process in terms of how you're building that out for your clients and also for how they should be implementing that?
Exactly, 100%. So what I do typically is I get all of the sales call transcripts from Fathom or a note taker, put it into a Google Doc, and then I use ChatGPT to essentially break it down into objections, pain points, goals, demographics, motivators, and then I essentially create content based on the top recurring objections. So if you have 4 YouTube videos, each handling a different objection that your sales rep sees every single time on calls, if you could just send that over before they have the call, either using an appointment setter or calling them up and saying, just watch this video, like in theory, they're not going to have the objection on calls. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Of course.
So we're actually
And
using
what
data
is
and we're using real insights to be able to make it easier for the sales reps.
Of course, I love that. And what's the like the modes that you've seen that works the best? Is it call or text or is it video format that gets the leads to act straight away?
Call, because people will forget maybe an ad they saw, they'll forget what it was about, they'll forget who you are after like an hour or two. So calling them within 5 minutes and then using text after that once they know your contact and they know who you are is an absolute game changer. So I like reps to double dial them literally within 5 minutes. If they don't answer, call them again a couple hours later. If they don't answer, call them again a couple hours later. But just doing your hardest to get in contact with them as soon as possible so they know who you are, they'll respond to your messages, and you can send over loads of content.
100%. Is that where now the speed to lead now comes in, like speed to lead in terms of contacting them and also booking the call?
Yeah, 100%. So I have a Google Doc, so not a Google Doc, like a Google Sheet and a workflow for my own ads, which tracks how quick, when a lead opts in, sorry, and the time that they get contacted. So it tracks the speed to lead. And I know if people are getting contacted longer than 5 minutes, then either I'm not doing my job or setters aren't doing their job. Do you know what I mean? So that's a really, really key metric to track.
Of course, of course. And like when you come into a business and you see all of these different things are, now implemented, what is the way that you basically go about implementing it for them, basically?
Build it out. Either me or a team member builds it out. Literally simple as that. So we have all the copy and paste. We have all the snapshots of workflows. Some it's got to be a bit custom in terms of sales pitch, sales process, etc. But we jump on an onboarding call, an initial audit, going through all of the bottlenecks, all of the information regarding the business, and based on that, either me or a team member will build everything out within a week sometimes. And then it's ongoing. Some other things are ongoing. Typically pretty
Of
quick.
course. And after that, like, are there still any specific metrics that you track after you've implemented it?
Just maintaining everything, man. Like close rate, show rate, average order value, cash percentage. It's sort of just ongoing then. Like if things are pretty, I guess, self-sufficient, then usually there won't be that many fluctuations once the systems are in place. But sometimes, ad lead quality can change. Sometimes you got to make some optimizations, but mainly close rate and show rate, really.
Of course. And what about show rate? I mean, I know we touched on that in terms of getting people to show up. Is it still the same process in terms of calling them to say, hey, do you remember, this call that we've had? Can you show up to this call? Like, how does that specific process happen for you to get someone onto the call?
Yeah, it's not so much, you're going to show up to your call. It's more adding personalization and building some trust. Okay, so you could call someone up and just say, "Hey, my name's Tom from Systemized Scaling, all this," and no one will resonate it. As opposed to calling someone up with energy, with charisma and personalization. "Hey, Fairy, it's Tom from Systemized Scaling. How's it going, man? You okay?" "Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good." "Okay, sweet, man. Well, look, I saw you just booked in a call. I thought I'd give you a call to see if there's any content I can send over before the call, and then just ask a few questions on their situation, get them to buy in, to trust you." And then you just send content over based on the call. Now that is literally like a consultation, right? You're sending content over based on their problems, so they're even more nurtured. As opposed to the typical, "Yeah, it's Tom, are you all good for the call?
Yes,
Sweet, I'll send over a one fit all video." You know what I mean?
of course, of course. It's not as
Because all in all, bro,
personalization.
people don't want to be sold to, right? And I think in this day and age, people feel like they're being sold to a lot. So if you show some form of care and personalization and trust and tailoring, then people will trust you a lot more. And they'll think, "You know what, this guy's probably like, yeah, he's trying to sell me, but he's not just like a sleazy sales bag who is just putting me through the same process."
Of course, he actually seems like he cares, about my business and what I'm
Yeah.
trying to achieve.
And it
Of course.
reflects your service as well. I think in your sales process, in your pre-call process, if you just have a stock way of doing things and just like a copy and paste, like people see that and they'll probably relate that value to the value you provide. But if you provide a shit ton of value before the call that's tailored on them, like a doctor's appointment, they're gonna probably think that you give a good fucking service.
Of course, simply because you've been able to build out the process, even before they hop onto the call. And I mean,
Yeah.
like, how important is that? Like, I think a lot of people probably miss that most of the things that happen, happen on the back end before the call even happens, and it's just more so like sweetening the deal, if you will, like when the people prospect actually hops on the call. Do you agree with that, or do you have a
Yeah,
different thing?
to a certain extent. I think, look, objection handling and sales reps are very important, but it's like it's not the be all and end all. And I learned this in closing. I had a big ego because I thought I was collecting a bunch of cash, but most of it is the actual engine, the marketing, what they're getting sent beforehand, how they're being nurtured, the actual messaging of the offer. And then the sales rep, yeah, they can do their objection handling, they can put their relevant positive pressure on to get them over the line, and the follow-up process after that, yeah, it's important. But I think what's most important is before, the first impressions, right? Because it takes a human roughly like zero point 0.2 seconds from seeing someone to make an impression. First time I saw you, subconsciously, I probably made some form of judgment of you. You did with me, right? Same with these prospects, right?
Okay.
So if you're giving them a good first impression, it's going to really help.
Of course, of course. Now I just want to jump back when you mentioned average order value. When you're speaking about payment plans and jumping too early to basically throw it like, hey, we have this specific payment plan. Like around that specific topic, like what do you see as the importance of having those payment plans and structuring them correctly when you're pitching on a sales call?
Yeah. So the key is not sharing all of your cards straight away. That's the key. Keeping some cards underneath your sleeve, right? So you always want to pitch the pay in full, and then only pitch payment plans like staggered based on the most down, based on their pricing and sorry their budget, right? But the importance of payment plans is incentive based tiers. So for example, let's say I said, all right, my offer's 5K. We could do it 2.5K times 2. We can do it 1.25K times 4. We can do it 1K times 5. What would you go for?
1K times 5.
Even if you had the money, you probably would still go for 1K times 5 because it's less risk and it seems psychologically better. Whereas if you have 2.5K times 2, yeah, you can break it into 2. But any more than that, there's a few $100s in terms of interest, $500 to $600 in terms of interest. If someone has the money, then they're less inclined to go for that because they're just paying more unnecessary money. So it's incentive-based pricing. Also, another good pricing tip is future pace-based pricing. Okay, and what that means is you're essentially quoting, let's say, all right, 4K up front, but when you make your first 100K, it's an extra 4K. Now, what that does, yeah, it's getting you more cash on the back end, but more so the psychological thought of, sorry, I just got a message. The psychological thought of oh shit, so these guys are confident that I'm going to get the result, that they want an extra 4K
And
when I get the results, you know what I mean?
of course, of course, they're like, hey, this guy's gonna get me to this specific point, and oh, they're gonna do even more. So why not just buy that? Because I'm gonna get to that specific point. And like with that, like has payment plans been somewhat of a different feeder, if you will, in terms of closing the deal? Like let's say if you just pitch in full and you say, hey, this is 5K, for example, are people less likely to bite on, hey, this is 5K, rather than, hey, we have a this is 5K, but we can break it up into 5 plans? And is that like a psychological thing more than anything else?
Depends on skill set of the rep. Some sales reps can get past it and even get people to take out credit, etc. And it depends on the offer. Some people have more money. But there's a lot
Of
of
course.
really good financing platforms these days. We got Splitit, we got Klarna, we got Firm, we got a bunch of things which allows people to just take out credit and pay in full, really. So I wouldn't say it's that much of an issue these days.
Of course, of course. And with like the entire like sales process, what do you think, from your perspective on the ops side of things, what do you think are some of the misconceptions in terms of building out, those specific systems that a lot of founders may miss?
It's a good question. I think misconceptions is how important your sales reps, how important it is to have aligned sales reps that have the emotional intelligence that relates to your offer, have some form of knowledge on your offer, have experience dealing with the type of prospects that you deal with, right? A lot of people just put on their story, I'm hiring for a closer, and they'll hire some Tom, Dick, and Harry, like anyone, right? And they'll realize they're not closing. They don't know why, but the reason why is because they may have experience closing 1 million in info sales, but they've never spoken to a more high-level B2B prospect, right? So you've got to find someone that really directly aligns to your business, and that's exactly what we help with, really. I'd say that's probably the
Wow.
biggest misconception, the reason why a lot of closers and sales don't work, and they're blaming the closers.
Because it's not like super tailored to who like they have experience to, correct?
Yeah, yeah. It's like, let's say
Mm-hmm.
you're hiring for the army, for the Marines.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't hire some. I better watch what I say. You wouldn't hire. You wouldn't hire a guy who works in like a flower shop. You know what I mean? Or a girl who works in a flower shop. You would hire someone
Of
who
course.
maybe has a good background in sport, maybe has high resilience, and has got that experience.
Of course, of course. No, I love that. I love that. And what's been like the thing that has also like helped you out? Like, has traveling been a aspect of that? Because I know you're somewhere nearby. I'm not gonna say where, but somewhere nearby.
Don't worry, you can dox me. I'm in Cape Town, South Africa. I'm sure not many people will be out with forks trying to hump me. But yeah, man, I think environment is a really big one. I think the
Mhm,
people you surround yourself with, like environment and how you feel is very important, but I think the people are even more important because
mhm,
you could be surrounded by people who are like negative all the time. They have certain
mhm.
beliefs. Even if you're pretty confident with yourself, you could rub off. They could rub off on you. You know what I mean?
Of course.
Like for example, every time I
Yeah.
go home back to my hometown, maybe I'll go out on one
Mhm,
weekend and see some old mates. They'll all be doing the same things. They'll all be working the same jobs. They'll all be drinking every single weekend. And
mhm.
to a certain extent, it makes me think, oh shit, I'm doing good. But in actual fact, it's comparing them to them as opposed to
True.
who I should compare myself to, which is people further ahead than me. So it's a very tricky thing, right? So I think if you hang around with people
Mhm,
who are better than you, and you're in a place that makes you feel good, that's sunny, that's cheap, that has great food, then
mhm.
naturally you'll be aligned with your higher self. That's the main key takeaway that I've learned over the past few
Of
years.
course. Of course. And are you loving it down there, like where you are?
I'm loving it, man. It's such a beautiful place. Everyone's happy. It's cheap.
Mhm,
It's sunny. Um, everything's easy. I can just get a delivery, anything on delivery, and it'll come in seconds.
mhm.
And yeah, it's just a great place to be as opposed to the UK where I get taxed everything and everyone's grumpy and the weather's bad and yeah, love it. It's great.
Really, really.
Whoever's watching,
And
if
like,
anyone's not been to Cape Town, You've got to go. Cape Town, South Africa.
Of course, bro. Cape Town's such a beautiful place. And like while you're there, like is there any masterminds down the line or anything that you've got planned in terms of networking events or anything?
No, I've got some friends that I've met here and there, but I'm sort of in an isolation phase, really. I think masterminds and
Mm-hmm.
courses, they're very glorified. I think most of the
Mm-hmm.
time you know what to do, but yeah, maybe you could have masterminds and courses on a specific topic, like how to run ads better, etc. But usually people just overpay and overbuy masterminds and courses when they don't really need to. They just need to just do the work. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really in a season where I just want to invest any more in course or mastermind right just yet anyway.
Of course. What is the biggest investment that you're making now? Is it into yourself? And if so, how are you going about that?
It's ads on a monthly basis. Ads
Mm-hmm.
are very up and down. They're very iterative, and but they can be
Mm-hmm.
very fruitful. So it's spending until finding creative that works the best. I mean, look, I
Mm-hmm.
made a big investment into coaching a couple months ago. To be fair, it didn't end up being that good, but we'll sort of leave that one there. But yeah, ads at the moment,
Mm-hmm.
really.
Of course, and they're producing results for you like on a consistent basis, correct?
Yeah, that's the reason why I sort of pledged to get into it and start running ads
Mm-hmm.
because it's linear. Do you know what I mean? You put X in, you get out if you have the right creative and the right settings to a certain extent and targeting. But yeah, it's getting me book calls. It's crushing it.
Of course, and I see you also running organic on YouTube, right? And how's that going as well?
Organic's a slow game. I've never really cracked organic. Instagram organic, I've
Mm-hmm.
got a bunch of clients from Instagram. YouTube, never so. I think my industry is,
Mm-hmm.
my niche is it's very niche and only a set few
Mm-hmm.
business owners are at a level where they need it.
Of
But
course,
yeah,
of course.
but I enjoy it though.
Uh,
I really enjoy creating and I really enjoy creating YouTube videos.
really? So like in the plans, like is it something that you want to just do for fun or do it for a business?
A mixture. The way I see it is
Mm-hmm.
it's more like a digital CD. Even if I don't get too
Mm-hmm.
many inbound clients from it, let's say I get a client from ads or a book call from ads, and they just need a bit more confidence. They can go to my YouTube and see I've been posting for 2 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
It gets to 6 years down the line. They see I've been posting for 6 years. It's very hard for me to be a scammer or me to not actually deliver what I say I'm going to deliver if I've got 6 years worth of history on YouTube. So it's more so a
Of
bank
course.
and proof and documentation. Me, however old I am, 10 mil in the bank, whatever, looking back
Mm-hmm.
at 23-year-old Tom doing his thing, making videos. It'd be pretty sick.
Of course. And what would you want, 40, 50-year-old Tom to remember about this specific moment in time?
Um, I don't know. That he was sacrificing everything to make it work. Sacrificing
Mm-hmm.
relationships, friends, parents, peace of mind, fun. I think he'll
Mm-hmm.
be super proud of that. Doing the contrarian view
Okay.
and just going against the grain and just risking it all, really.
What is your contrarian view on business?
My contrarian view is I think all these unique mechanisms, all these like, oh yeah, win systems, I think they're all
Mm-hmm.
bullshit. I think fundamentally scaling businesses is relatively simple and it's pretty much the same universally. There's a few
Mm-hmm.
different nuances, and I feel like a lot of people really, truly, deep down know what they need to do,
Mm-hmm.
but they outsource to coaching, consulting, masterminds to try and like get dopamine to feel like they're progressing. That's my contrarian view. I think deep down we all really know
Sure.
what to do, but we're just not doing it.
Sure. And what do you think? Do you think that ever stops? Like, there's a point where they realize that, hey, all this time I've been trying to outsource like my thinking and the way that I do things, but not realizing that in order to reach the next level, it ultimately comes from within.
Yeah, look, I think there is some sort of external influence to give you some data sets, but I think most of the time, yeah, trust your intuition. Trust what you think you honestly
Mm-hmm.
have to do. You probably know how to do it. but maybe it's like I think the way I see it is most people know what to do. I think the issue is the reason why some people get courses and coaching is because they don't know how to do it.
Of course.
But it's not rocket science to figure out all these things out. Cold email, ads, even outreach.
Of course, I agree. You just have to take the time to actually like learn and do the thing that needs to get done. I mean,
Exactly.
I've been watching a lot of like founders podcasts. Do you watch that?
I not so much Founders Podcast, but I watch a bunch.
Mm-hmm. Which ones do you watch?
I don't know the names of them. I sort of just type in specific business owners, specific SaaS business owners, like whatever I'm working on at the time. I asked ChatGPT who's the biggest in the game for this specific topic, and who would be the best to learn from. And I sort of just learn from them really.
Of course. And who do you look up to in the business world space?
Alex Becker's a big one because he's come from this like info space and he's gone and built and scaled up relatively big software company. So I think some people who've came from the same space as me and gone big, that's people I really look up to. Sam Ovens is a big one. Charlie Morgan with his mindset and more first principles thinking. Mark Cuban's a big one as well. Bunch of guys.
That's so sick, bro. Like Mark Cuban, bro. Do you watch Shark Tank as well? Like that
I have
show's
done it in
pretty
the past.
sick.
I don't have time to watch it anymore.
That's funny. That's funny. But yeah, bro. Like I mean, like what would you basically say like if you were watching this, like 10 years from now that you'd want to say to Tom if you were looking at Tom in the eyes right now or yourself right now? What would you say about now going on into the future, about building, about you, like what you want to achieve as well?
I think I would say don't take it so seriously. It's not that deep. Yeah, work hard, put in the shift, do more than the average person. But when it comes down to it, it's not that deep. What's going to come will come. So don't stress yourself out or don't put too much pressure on yourself to get certain outcomes in certain time frame. Just trust it'll come and it will. And then in the meantime, just live life.
Of course, of course. And anything you'd want to say to anyone that is just starting out and trying to figure out their way into this online space or even get to the point where you are, like having done closing and then now ultimately building their own thing?
Yeah. I would say there are so many people starting out who lack action, but most importantly, they lack the ability to think how to stand out. Let's say you're applying for closing gigs, right? And you're sending Loom outreaches or videos. A lot of people send the exact same videos, but think, how can I stand out and make the interviewer or my client or my potential client think, this person's different. I like his energy, right? Find a way to stand out and just carry on doing it and you'll fucking win. Excuse my language.
Of course, bro. Of course. And then you're gonna win. I love that.
100%.
So yeah. So yeah, bro. I know we have a hard stop, so I want to ask you if you have anything else that you wanna finish this off or say.
Not really. That's pretty much it. Live life, smoke cigars, and eat good food. That's pretty much it.
And where could people find you?
So at Tom Hyder _ on Instagram, Tom Hyder on LinkedIn, Tom Hyder _ on YouTube, and www.systemizescaling or systemize-scaling.com.
100%. I'll drop all the links in the description.